Test. Let's see, there. Can you hear me now? Okay, test, test, test. From where? Here or there? Can you do your thing from there, or do you got to go there? Okay, so.
Check, check. Check. Why is it not showing up yet?
Morning.
Good morning, Ron.
Hello.
Good morning. Morning.
Neoma, can you hear me? Oh. Neoma, can you hear me? Apparently not. Can you talk to her?
Mark, what are you laughing at?
Our vice chair's extra.
Can you hear us here in the chambers?
Doesn't sound like it.
So it looks like we have about
Can you text her? She can't hear me.
maybe.
Can you hear me?
Eventually.
Denise, you're on mute, in case you didn't know that.
Yeah, I know. You wanna, I hate this.
Who's that sitting at the dais?
I think it's Bill.
Bill is,
They're having some
Yes, there.
technical issues. Yeah, Bill is in chambers all by his lonesome with, I think, Denise, so they're having a couple issues.
okay. Don't we all?
Right. So true. They're working on it.
No idea.
Do you want me to tell her to start? Can they do it? They can't do it without you, right?
Right. This is all on. They just can't hear us. And if I turn this off of mute, then it echoes. So do you know how to get a hold of that guy?
Yeah, I have his contact info, but
Sounds like something's printed.
What about?
So Dale, question for you. While our clerk attempts to get those issues worked out, are we able to move on to, oh, it looks like she might have just got something. Hang on. Denise, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Oh, Bill, I can hear you. There's an echo, but I can.
Yeah, we're trying to fix that.
Denise, you're back on mute. You came off of mute for a second. Now you're back on.
There she
There
is.
you are.
I just wonder, how do we pronounce Moreno?
Can you hear me now?
Just the way you did.
Moreno, I got it, okay.
Just the way you did.
Can you guys hear me now?
Uh-oh, it's like a
See-
B movie.
We may have to put us all on mute while Denise takes the roll. We'll just have to take it off one at a time. Okay, Denise, we can hear you. There's an echo, but we can hear you.
We're working on it.
They've got something else turned on in their background. They've got two things attached to the system, connected.
Yeah, Denise, to us, you sound like you're in a tunnel with a horrible echo. Nope, still a pretty gnarly echo. Nope.
Madam Chair, they may have hot mics in the chamber.
That's what I was. Whew. Okay, now we're all echoing.
Is it legal for you to call for a roll call, Madam Chair?
That's what I was gonna ask Dale, if, given the technical issues, can I act in some capacity as the clerk?
Madam Vice Chair, I think we just have to improvise here, and I'm going to answer that question, yes. Do we have anyone besides yourself? Oh, we do have, I see now we have Commissioner Smith and Commissioner Hartung, so we do have a quorum.
Yes, thank you. Denise, do you want to talk one more time and we'll see if it's cleared up? If not, I'll just move forward.
Testing. Sorry.
Yeah, we're still got a horrible echo, so hopefully, maybe it'll get it worked out as we move forward. At this time, we're going to start the meeting of the July 17th meeting of the RTC. We're going to start with the roll call, and we'll start with Commissioner Lucy, I believe is out. Commissioner Hartung,
Present via Zoom, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Smith,
Here.
Commissioner Delgado. Absent. Okay. I think that's it, right?
Call your own name.
Yeah, Vice Chair Jordan, here.
Oh, good.
And Christina, the director of NDOT.
Nice to see you, Christine. Okay, roll call is completed. At this time, we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll all stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
United
States
States of America.
and to the republic for which
For
it
which it
stands,
stands,
one nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God, indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk or Director Thomas, Director Thomas, can you speak into your mic so we can see if we can hear you?
Yes. I think you can hear me, but it echoes really bad.
Feedback.
Madam Chair, they need to just check every mic in the commission chamber. And she may actually have the public comment mic at the podium still hot as well. That may be the one that's giving them feedback because it broadcasts throughout the chamber.
Okay, we'll give this a second here. Okay, well, we're going to move forward. At this time, we're going to move into the approval of the agenda. And if we have any issues or items that we pulled.
Move to approve. Smith?
I've got a motion from Commissioner Smith, a second from Commissioner Hartung. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, moving on to public comment. My understanding is that the public comment that was received by 4 p.m. yesterday has been distributed to all listeners, and we've all received those and are part of the record. Madam Clerk, do we have any additional public comment at this time other than what we've received as of 4 p.m.? No additional public comment. I'm getting a written response on my screen because of her mic issues, so everything goes. Okay, moving on. Item 2.2, accept the monthly summary report. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item? Nope. Okay, seeing none. May I get a motion?
Move to approve.
I have a motion.
Or move to accept the report.
Second Hartung, and Madam Chair, it looks like Mr. Delgado may have come in as well.
Mr. Delgado, are you on the line?
It's turned off.
Thank you. Yes, I just jumped on.
Welcome, welcome. Madam Clerk, please let the record reflect that Commissioner Delgado is on the line. We have a motion. Do we have a second for item 2.2?
Second by Hartung.
We have a motion by Smith, second by Hartung. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed?
Brush your teeth.
Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
You licked my face,
Aye.
like my nose, and it smells bad because of like gross morning breath.
Somebody's,
Uh-oh, somebody's got a hot mic.
and they're talking about a dog.
Yes,
licking, I think.
it's you.
Tess, mute yourself.
You know,
Or Sandra.
There we go.
You gotta love the dog. Okay, motion item 2.2 passes unanimously. Item 3, do any commissioners have any issues to pull for discussion off of the consent? Okay, seeing none, Madam Clerk, do we have public comment on the consent items? Okay, seeing none, may I get a motion?
So moved, Hartung.
Second, Smith.
Motion Hartung, second Smith. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. We are on item
4.1.
3. I think we're on, what are we on?
4.1.
Wow, that was a lot of consent. Okay, we are on 4.1. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none? Okay, let's have our presentation.
Where's Amy?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. This is Dan Dunges, Planning Manager for the record, and I will be giving a brief presentation on the RTP status and project selection. Allow me just a moment to pull up my screen here. And I'm assuming everyone can see that okay?
Yep.
Hopefully everyone's muted too. Okay. So as everyone knows, we are in the process of developing the 2050 Regional Transportation Plan, or RTP. And right now we're currently in the phase where we're gathering public input as well as entity and agency planning partner stakeholder input as far as projects and also programs and services to consider for inclusion into the 2050 RTP. We currently have a survey that's available through July 20th, so it's open a few more days. It's been pushed out to the public to try to get their response. It's actually kind of a fun interactive survey. Anyone that logs on to the survey is able to select specific areas where they would like to see improvements and kind of select from a menu of options of what type of improvements they want to see. It's all geo-referenced, so we'll be able to kind of download that data into a GIS format when the survey closes. And of course, anyone can contact staff during this time as well. And we're also encouraging members of the public to visit the RTC website, where there is a brief public meeting that's kind of talking through the process and how the public can participate. To date, I believe we've had 173 responses. I checked this morning, so pretty happy with the response rate so far. Of course, we're looking at projects, as I mentioned, that are suggested by the community. We also have an agency working group that consists of several entity agencies and like cities of Reno and Sparks and Washoe County, and everyone on our advisory committees as well has been providing input. Of course, a lot of our projects will be considered, evaluated, and considered for inclusion from our current 2040 RTP. Of course, several of them have been completed or are under design or development, but we'll be looking at some of those projects in the out years and carrying those forward into the 2050 RTP. In addition to that, we have a few, since our last adoption of our current 2040 RTP. May of 2017, we've conducted or are in the process of several area and corridor studies. A couple of them have been to the board recently with South Meadows Multimodal Transportation Study, and as well as the University Area Multimodal Transportation Study, kind of looking at that Gateway District.
Nobody can hear.
Our ADA transition plan, and we're underway with our coordinated human services transportation plan. And this really is a plan that looks at realizing any efficiencies that could be gained in partnering with nonprofit service providers for, organizations that provide medical trips and that sort of thing. We are in the procurement process for our advanced mobility study, which will be looking at autonomous vehicles, alternative forms of energy, other mobility options, kind of the whole gamut. And also we are partnering with NDOT on a couple corridor studies, one on the Mount Rose Highway and one looking at the entire McCarran Loop. So these last couple studies likely will not be complete before our RTP, but we're hoping to get any preliminary findings and incorporate that into the RTP. Just a quick reminder of some of the projects in our current RTP that have moved forward, that are under construction or development. Obviously, Sun Valley Boulevard's moving along. We're out there doing some work right now to incorporate some pedestrian and multimodal improvements that are really needed on that corridor. We're currently going through some design considerations for the Center Street cycle track. Looking forward to upcoming public input on some of those features, and well underway with the design of the Oddie Wells multimodal improvements. So as I mentioned earlier, a lot of projects that will be considered for inclusion into the 2050 RTP are projects that are currently on the books, particularly those in the out years. We'll just be evaluating how to move those forward. This is just a map kind of representing what we've already have programmed. And some of the new projects I mentioned that came out of the South Meadows transportation study, as well as a few more that were suggested. We're kind of showing with the little focus area on the South Meadows map here. And again, as I mentioned with the university area study, there's just a map showing some of the project recommendations and suggestions that came out of that study. Another source of projects that we're looking for, again, the public, but also we're in hearing from members of the development community, particularly with a focus up in the North Valleys area. There's been a lot of good suggestions for consideration for improving the connectivity in the North Valleys. On this map, you can kind of see the purple dash lines represent some of those suggestions that have come out of various conversations we've had. RTC is very engaged also with the city of Reno and Reno State Airport and looking at their development and expansion plans and how we can work together to facilitate some of that. Obviously, North Valleys is a very growing area, so we've done a lot of work already. You can see the projects in red are ones that have been completed, and the yellow are in design. And of course, again, referring back to our 2040 RTP, a lot of these projects in blue here on this map.
Okay.
Other suggestions we have heard about connections to the Tri-Center. Obviously, we're partnering very closely with NDOT, as we always do, and looking at widening of I-80 as a potential project. Some other suggestions have been to extend a new road off of La Posada, and also down south, the development community again has approached the RTC with possible expansion of or extension of South Meadows Parkway into the Tri-Center as well. So for the street projects, or all projects, no projects.
Dan, can I stop you real quick there?
Absolutely.
So we're just looking at roads going out to the Tri-Center. Are we investigating, and maybe I'm short here, are we investigating looking at partnering with a rail system to get out there? Possibly with Amtrak or something of that nature that could alleviate a lot of that traffic and alleviate the need to try to widen I-80 through the East Truckee Canyon, which is that's just an uphill climb.
Yeah, and that's a great question. I know RTC staff has been in contact with the Union Pacific Railroad. I don't know how fruitful or to the extent those conversations have really talked about possible commuter rail. I also know that NDOT is about to start updating their rail plan as well. And I believe that's one of the things they'll be looking at is commuter rail in addition to freight. So I know some of those conversations have occurred. And again, since we're in this phase of the RTP, kind of everything's on the table. And obviously when we get our universe of projects, so to speak, we'll be kind of going through those, looking at prioritizing them, measuring it up to our funding. As you know, our plan has to be what's called fiscally constrained. So we have to have the revenues forecasted to be reasonably available to implement these projects. So yeah, the short answer, I guess, is yes, some of those conversations have occurred.
Okay, thank you. I apologize. I just wanted to make sure that it was somewhere in our plan that we are looking at those kinds of things. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Shifting our focus a little bit to transit, we did adopt a short-range transit plan a couple years ago, right around the same time as our current RTP. And some of the highlights that coming out of that plan were really to focus on how we could best serve our existing ridership and focus on those areas with higher employment and residential densities to realize some of those efficiencies. And there were some service change concepts that came out of that, some that have been implemented. And we are always evaluating how we can improve our services there. Was there a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, they're still trying to work out some of the issues in chambers. They've got IT there, so I think they're testing it. That's what that was.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Another one that we're really excited about that came out of our affordable housing study that was recently completed is the possibility of upgrading our transit stop across the street from the Peppermill into a full-size rapid station. We're looking at possible opportunities to the FTA through their joint development program and working with the City of Reno and Reno Housing Authority to see, in addition to upgrading that station, there are opportunities to develop some much needed affordable housing in this area. Some of the other transit opportunities we're exploring through this RTP are service expansion on our bus rapid transit corridors, that being the Lincoln Line and the Virginia Line, looking to really capitalize on the success of those. Obviously, there's some potential for some significant development on West 4th Street. So BRT to help facilitate maybe some higher density there is a great possibility. We're also seeing, as many of you know, the increase in multifamily housing and affordable housing more in South Reno. And so we've heard requests for extending the BRT down to South Reno as well. I'll just preface, these things aren't going to happen overnight, but these things are exploring the possibilities, as our plan is a 20-year plus horizon. And some of that could be facilitated with the success we've had with the FlexRIDE service. For example, one of the things we discussed internally is the possibility if the BRT were extended down to South Reno, perhaps implementing a FlexRIDE service to kind of support that as a feeder network. This has proven to be pretty successful in North Sparks, and of course we've implemented this in the North Valleys and are looking to start up in Spanish Springs and Verdi as well. A couple other areas that we've heard requests for this type of service is up in Red Rock and Cold Springs, and also Incline Village, and how that might be another feeder service to kind of the greater Tahoe area. Of course, it's not all about service. We have some significant capital needs as well. Depending on the timing and the phasing with the spaghetti bowl improvements that NDOT has laid out, we'll likely are looking at relocation of our Villanova facility. That's kind of twofold. We're also looking at expanding our alternative fuel fleet into other types of energy, that's such as hydrogen fueling. Obviously, well, for obvious reasons, you can't have something like that underneath the freeway. So that'll be another item we explore in RTP. And we're also looking at expanding our Sutro maintenance facility as our fleet and our needs kind of continue to grow with these different types of alternative fuel vehicles. And also we're looking at possibly relocating our Meadowwood Wall transfer station somewhere in the near vicinities. Maybe there's an opportunity to kind of reposition it where it really logistically functions better than it does now without such the interaction with the mall traffic there. And that really concludes my presentation. We wanted to open up for questions and discussion, and also hear any ideas from the commission as far as other projects that we should maybe be considering.
Any commissioners have any questions on this presentation?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Hartung.
So I know that this is an NDOT project, Dan, but or potentially an NDOT project. And I'm going to ask Director Swallow to have a look at some things later on when she makes her presentation. But you know, we have some real need in the north end of Spanish Springs with respect to capacity on Pyramid Highway. And I mean, there's a lot of growth going on, and that growth is not something that's new. It's been on the books. Many of those approvals were on the books from the early 2000s. So I mean, it's starting to come to fruition, and that would be the signal from essentially Egyptian / Sunset Springs that's planned all the way out to the very end of the valley, you know, past like, you know, Encanto and those, that, you know, that area beyond Pebble Creek. It really, I mean, that's a really, really high volume stretch of the road for being only 2 lanes. So I'm hopeful that that's somewhere in our plan, and you know, that we're really gonna look at that. That may even be more important than widening Pyramid Highway down to the south, although that's an extremely important part also because of all the growth and the development that's going on south of La Posada and up Highland Ranch Parkway.
Absolutely. Thank you for that suggestion, and we'll add that to the list.
And Highland Ranch Parkway also, if you would, because eventually that's going to have to be widened, you know, with the Ridges project in the city of Sparks. These are in District 5, but they're there. And then, of course, there's another smaller development, but that's going to have to be dealt with. And then one other thing, Dan, and that is 7th Street going over to Golden Valley, O'Brien Pass. There's development going on up at the top of that pass. There's residential happening. That, depending on the time of year, that road can be very treacherous, and it's very windy and really does need to be evaluated and potentially added into our plan. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Any other commissioners have? I thought I heard a voice. Was that Commissioner Delgado?
Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair. My question is related to the possible partnership with the Arena Housing Authority across from the Peppermill. Can I get just a little bit more? I know we talked about it in the past, what that relationship was going to look like. Are we looking at providing that parcel directly to the Arena Housing Authority for housing, or is there are we just really on the early parts of just ideas? How far along are we with the project and so forth?
I think we have some early discussion, but Director Cummings probably has a little more information than I do if she wants to share.
Amy, I think you might be muted. And I don't think it's on your end. I think there must be the system has muted you. Denise, I think Amy Cummings might be muted. Don't worry, Denise. We'll make your way through this. It's all good.
And if we're having technical issues, Vice Chair, I could have the conversation offline as well. Just wanted more information as to what that's looking like now in the immediate and in the short term.
Absolutely. We can certainly follow up with you, Commissioner Delgado. Thank you for that question.
Thanks.
Amy, can you speak now? Maybe we can hear you. Nope, you're still not there. We'll catch up with you individually. I guess my question for Dan is, did we purchase that lot? We did not. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, have not yet. Yeah, we're pretty early on in discussions, but the good news is they've been positive discussions for the most part. So I think everyone has mutual interest, and yeah, we're working through trying to see what we need to do to make this happen.
Good. That's great. Yeah, more affordable housing in that core area would be a plus for a lot of reasons. My questions are, and I understand, of course, these are NDOT roads, but however we help support and facilitate the improvements, safety and capacity improvements on North McCarran is something. I know that there was the study done. I just don't know, what the timeline is to do some of those improvements. Those are just, really fast growing areas between both sides of North McCarran, and high speed growing population, darker streets is just the recipe for disaster. So however we're working to globally look at that North McCarran stretch, I think does need to be a priority for us. And then the other is, just looking at the development areas, Verdi is cooking, and however we're helping to support the infrastructure needs out on the, the Highway 40 and areas, arterials out to the Verdi area. That's an area that has development, will have future development, and we need to get that on our radar to make sure that we have the infrastructure there to support it.
Vice Chair Jordan?
Oh, there you are, Amy.
I've been unmuted. You're in, we will need to go through NEPA analysis under environmental analysis through the FTA before we can move forward with that project. And we are getting that underway now for the Peppermill station upgrade. So we're in the early phases, but we have been working really closely with our partners with Reno Housing Authority and City of Reno. They were partners when we developed the affordable housing study last year. So we look forward to continuing to work with them.
Thank you. And I suppose on that vein, when you talk about NEPA, we should probably at a future meeting have an update on the recent changes from the administration as it relates to NEPA. I know something just came down. I don't know what it means, when it means anything. So we should probably have that as part of a future discussion. Any other commissioners have any questions or comments on this presentation at this time? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none. This is for possible action. May I get a motion?
So moved, Hartung.
Motion
Second,
Hartung.
Delgado.
Second Delgado. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 5, Mr. Thomas, are you able to give us a report?
Well, we'll see. Apparently not.
All right, well, we still have a gnarly echo, so why don't we do this? Why don't we skip over to item 5.3? We'll get the NDOT report, and then maybe if by some chance some stuff gets cleared up, we'll come back to item 5.1 and 5.2. Christina.
All right, can you all see my screen?
Yes.
I don't know why I just said y'all. That's not really a thing I do, but I did it today. So good morning. All right, so I'm just going to do my regular report, and we will start with traffic safety. And so starting with traffic safety, you can see the fatality rate or the number of fatalities on our roads this year continues to trend lower than it was last year. There have been 131 lives lost on our roadway network this year compared to two higher than that, 133 last year. And so that is a positive story, except for the fact that every single life lost is one too many. And also, as you start to look into that data, it's really sort of interesting recognizing how much of a dramatic change we've had in travel volume on the roads. And so March and May, I should say, April and June were fairly were low months, but March and May were actually high months. Both of them were over 40% higher than the fatalities that occurred in the corresponding month last year. In fact, May was close to 50% higher in terms of fatalities. So while our numbers are trending lower, we still have some disturbing trends on the roads, and we need to be thinking about and working on that. I should also note that, as you can see, motorcyclist fatalities are down by about 24%. We've had fewer bicyclist fatalities from 5 this time last year to 3 in 2020. But But unfortunately in Washoe County, we are seeing some troubling increases. Crashes and fatalities are both up 26% from the same time last year, and occupant fatalities are up a staggering 80% in Washoe County. Pedestrian motorcyclist fatalities have remained the same in Washoe County, but we have seen an additional bicyclist fatality. So oftentimes we look at the high level numbers, but we don't understand or dive deep and see what we're really doing on a county basis or how that's breaking out. And so I did want to just focus on that a second. And then I wanted to, as I've mentioned, I wanted to tell a story of an actual crash because these aren't just numbers, these are people. And so in the early morning hours of July 4th, a tragic crash took the lives of 2 local teenagers. They were killed in a single car crash on Sparks Boulevard near Bering Boulevard. Witnesses reported the car traveling south on Sparks Boulevard at a high rate of speed. After driving through the intersection at Bering, the vehicle hit a tree. Fortunately, they hit a tree, not another person, not another vehicle. Both teens in the car were pronounced dead at the scene. As a state, we have a curfew that restricts teen driving hours between the hours of 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. unless traveling to or from a work or school event. And we need to remember that all of us demonstrate and model the behaviors we expect in those that are watching us. And so it is all our responsibility to remember to drive safe on the roads every single time we get on the roads. They are a way that we get to and from work, to and from home. And especially now during the COVID crisis, our hospitals do not need to see more people or treat people in the hospitals that resulted from decisions that could have been made differently. So just a reminder, every single life lost is one too many on our roadway network. All right, COVID-19, as you know, we've all been managing through this. This has impacted our transportation system. I spoke briefly about how volumes are down. I actually did just receive I get a weekly email that shows me a few count stations across the state, and largely across the state where we were seeing anywhere between 40 and 80% reductions in volumes in March, they have recovered to mostly almost across the state. Everyone is less than 20%. In many cases, we're seeing single-digit reductions in volumes compared to last year. And in some cases, we're seeing volumes even higher than they were last year. So that is positive as we talk about our programs and revenue available to deliver the program. And of course, MDOT is continuing to do all of the things to keep our team and our broader team as a whole safe during the COVID crisis. I wanted to talk briefly about a couple of natural disasters that have occurred.
We're getting a echo.
That have occurred in the last several months, or last month, I should say.
Neoma, can you mute Denise, or is she in control?
I think she's in control. I think they're trying to work it out. But Denise, just so you know, every time you unmute the chambers, we get pretty nasty reverb.
The first focus area I wanted to look at was wildfires. As we all know up here, there have been several wildfires in the last month. I have a list here of the Murphy Fire, the Poville Fire, the Jakes Fire, the Rose Fire, and the East Fork / Numbers Fire. All of these fires are opportunities, I should say. We engage. If folks didn't know, NDOT is involved and engaged in fire response. At times, we simply close the road to ensure that nobody is entering the area that is unsafe. Other times, we help with clearing the sides of the road within our right-of-way to ensure that to create a break and help prevent the fire from spreading. Sometimes we even provide water trucks and facilities, and all of the emergency responders frequently use our fuel stations across the state to help ensure that they are able to respond. I did want to say we also frequently experience damage, and in the case of the Numbers Fire, we had our crews deployed and actually ended up replacing guardrail, over a mile of guardrail that was impacted. So these fires, they aren't just devastating to the environment, they also are devastating to our transportation system and anyone who relies on that transportation system to get to and from the necessary destinations on their daily travel. I'm really proud of our team because when the fires happen, They don't happen in the daily 9 to 5. They happen when in the overnight hours. We put out the call to our crews. We actually did a all team chat yesterday and did a kudos. And I believe the Numbers Fire had 6 or 7 different representatives from 6 or 7 different crews responding, because they're responding in the overnight hours and the weekends. And so we put out the call and the team shows up. And then another one that this is.
We pause. Okay, never mind. I'm getting a message. They wanted to pause for a second because they think they got it worked out. Denise, are we good to go? Okay, she's saying stay paused for just a half a second while they're working that out. Christina, thank you, and all the NDOT crew.
Buffing out. It's going to be fine. Little wax. It's all good. We can buff that out.
just a little cosmetic.
Just a little parking lot scratch.
Yeah.
Just needs a bath. Okay, Denise, we're going to give this one last shot. All good? Right. Let me hear from you, Denise or Bill.
They're unmuted now, so that's good.
Testing.
Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, we are good. All right, Christina, let's just move forward, and then it sounds like we might be able to get Bill to do his presentation after this.
Perfect. I will keep moving forward. So this one is an interesting one. I don't think we frequently have mudslides in Nevada, but on June 24th, at approximately 2 to 2.5 inches of rain fell in a short period of time, causing several rock and mudslides to cover State Route 140 in a remote area of the state. This is all the way up at the Oregon border, Humboldt County, near the very northern top of Washoe County. Thankfully, no one was seriously injured in the mudslide. It was roughly 4 miles long. Multiple NDOT maintenance crews from Quinn River, Orovada, Winnemucca responded, and they worked around the clock to clear miles of mud that had washed over, as I said, about 3 to 4 miles of the highway. In some locations, the mud was up to 12 feet deep in locations. Fortunately, nobody was seriously injured. However, despite the fact that there's a low volume road, there actually were still several cars that were impacted by it. And I just think about what that must have been like to be driving down the road and see the mud just flowing at you and not really having any alternate option. But again, everybody was okay. We thank the Oregon DOT for assisting by closing the road at the state line and inspecting the road on the west side, because we were unable to get crews to that side of the slide until it was clear. The prompt response by NDOT crews ensured all mud was cleared away and the road was reopened in about 2.5 days. So that's what you can see. It's a very dirty truck. We're still out there. The level of the amount of effort required has resulted in us getting an emergency declaration for the cleanup and the repair. We are, of course, thinking about when we have a mudslide, what that does to the flood waters and the storm waters in the future. We also are considering all of that in our response to the fires and concerned about what happens as we hit into the rainy season and the impacts the rain will have on the fire-scarred slopes. So just another update of a response. And then I have 2 project updates. First is the PARR Bridge. So as we discussed last month, you've seen we've removed the PARR Dandini Bridge. It happened in mid-June, I think right after our last meeting. Since then, the crews have almost completed the earthwork and foundations for the new bridge. And in early July, they began false work to temporarily support the new precast concrete bridge girders. The girders will be slid from the temporary false work into their permanent location at the beginning of August. Due to high voltage overhead power, they have to be slid. They can't be lifted into place. In order to safely install the new bridge girders, between Friday, July 31st at 9 p.m. and August 3rd at 5 a.m., drivers on US 395 will be detoured over the freeway ramps, similar to what happened when we took the bridge down, with moderate delays expected. Once the girders are in place, nighttime lane closures will also resume in August to begin construction of the new bridge deck, which is expected to be completed by the end of August. Perhaps the most important traffic impact will be throughout August when ramps between 395 and PARR boulevards will be closed 24/7. This will help keep motorists safe in the construction zone and enables crews to safely reconstruct the ramps and allow placement of up to 5 feet of fill dirt to tie into the new bridge. Emergency access will be available for the first responders throughout that time. And overall, the project is progressing on schedule and should be complete by the end of the year. The new wider bridge is a critical first step in our future phase widening of 395 in the North Valleys. And then the last project I wanted to give an update on was SBX. As per your request, we want to make sure that you have a monthly update on the progress of SBX. The project is still progressing well. We issued NTP1 early this year. NTP2 was issued at the end of April. Since that time, we've also received UPRRs, the railroad's second of 4 approvals of the preliminary design for the bridge reconstruction. That approval is new since our last report. Construction activities are still anticipated to start as early as late summer, and you may still be seeing preliminary geotech work, but the utility potholing investigation work is complete. We have been having a conversation about whether or not we can do any sort of a groundbreaking, and given the COVID pandemic, I don't know that that will be possible, but if it is, we will be coordinating closely and make sure that you're all aware of what the plans are. And with that, I just wanted to say one last thing and congratulate Commissioner Hartung on being recognized by the Water Environment Federation as the 2020 Public Official of the Year. Stormwater, clean water and clean stormwater is something at NDOT that we care a lot about, and it's great to have a partner in this effort like Commissioner Hartung. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Swallow. That's very kind of you.
Yes, that's an incredible honor. Congratulations. Do any commissioners have any questions of Director Swallow at this time? Commissioner Hartung and then Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Director Swallow, as you know, and you started out with this, and I'm glad because I know NDOT is deeply committed to public safety, and you know, one fatality is too many. As you know, on Pyramid Highway in the recent months, we've had 2 fatalities. One was a direct result of speeding. The other was a vehicle versus pedestrian at about Pyramid and Dolores. Right in there, it was between, I think it was Robert Banks and Dolores. But regardless, my ask is, and I know our budgets are tight, Director, I know it's a difficult time right now, but if it is possible to somehow get on the schedule, it would be wonderful to have an RSA from about the library, which is just beyond Erin, and then go all the way north past Pebble Creek, maybe even to Axe Handle, and do an RSA and just look at that road. Are there things, and just try to get some direction via a road safety audit that could potentially make that roadway safer. You know, just north of the library, rather, we have a Sparks development, that little Centex development, which is right in and right out, and their only way to get south on Pyramid right now is they've got to make a right out, get over to the far left lane, through the number 2, then the number 1, and then over into that U-turn lane and make a U-turn at Dolores. But there's many other issues. And then I want to say it was maybe a year and some change ago, I lose track of time. It used to be a 45-mile-an-hour zone through there all the way out past Egyptian and Sunset Springs. It's now NDOT raised it to a 55-mile-an-hour zone. And I know, actually, it was still the director. So it's been a couple of years now, but NDOT did not coordinate at all with Washoe County's planning department, or to my knowledge, didn't coordinate with Sparks Planning Department. And that stretch of road, as I mentioned earlier, and asking Dan to really get that in our plan, that stretch of road it's going to become busier and busier and busier with all the things that are going on, not only in the unincorporated area of Spanish Springs, but of course in Sparks, all in District 4. So my hope is that you guys can somehow work in, and maybe RTC can work backwards with some of our RIF funds to do an RSA on that section of road. That'd be wonderful. And just give us some direction. Just, give us some feedback. I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Director Swallow.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank Christina for her update. I think that was the best update we've had from NDOT in a long time. So keep up the good work. Thank you very much. Appreciate the update on phase 2 of the Spaghetti Bowl. I want to keep updated on that and see where we're going. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other commissioners have any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move back to, Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment on that item?
No, we do not.
Okay, seeing, going to move back to item 5.1 and 5.2. Director Thomas. Thompson. No, Thomas. I'm sorry, I was looking at Denise Thompson's name.
We should probably change one of those to make it easier for everyone.
I know.
Well, let's give this a try and see how it works. I apologize to all of the commissioners, Director Swallow, and the public. We had some difficulties here that we finally fixed. Sadly, they were at the very end of the meeting. So I thank you, Vice Chair, for running the meeting so well in the 11th hour and trying to manage through this. So I apologize on behalf of RTC, and we will make sure it doesn't happen again. A couple quick announcements. The first, I'm very pleased to announce that we've made a promotion with the retirement of Julie Masterpool. We had an opening for an engineering manager, and fortunately we have some very good people on staff, and through our internal recruitment process, Brian Stewart selected and I supported the promotion of Dale Keller to be our new engineering manager. So I think all of you who've worked with him know his skill sets and qualities, and he will be a great addition to our team, even though he's already here. His new assignments will really help us a lot, and I know all of you look forward to working with him and congratulating him when you get a chance for his promotion. The second thing I wanted to announce is earlier this week we started construction of the Gregg Street project. A project overview video is available at rtcwashoe.com and our social media channels for the duration of the project, which should last about 4 weeks. I believe Dan touched briefly on a conversation we've been having since about May with the regional metropolitan planning organizations, TRPA, and Carson City, wherein we've talked about adding a on-demand service to the lake between South Reno, the lake, and Carson City. The staffs have come up with a possibility for 2 possible on-demand type services that we're thinking we could do a demonstration project on in spring of 2021 that would run from South Reno to Carson City and Lake Tahoe. The RTC, as far as its contribution, because this is anticipated to be contributions from all 3 entities in order for this to be become a thing, is that we have about $300,000 that's available based on CARES Act funding and would be available to fund RTC's portion of that. So when we get to the point where it's actually able to be brought forward and described to the public and to you, we would run it through our normal May 2021 ride service change, which would give the board the opportunity to provide direction and have input, and also include a robust public input process. So I just wanted to make all of you aware those conversations are going on, and we are doing our best to see if there's opportunity there to do an on-demand provision of service up to the lake and then to Carson City. I did want to update you very briefly on SCR 3. As those of you who are following the legislature know, that they're still in session, so we were supposed to have a conversation actually today at the same time as this meeting with the subcommittee that's working on that issue, and obviously that was postponed because of the legislature being in session. So my understanding is that meeting, which is going to be a presentation of options and a discussion about a myriad of things, but most importantly, a conversation about how revenue would be collected from non-internal combustion engine vehicles, is going to be moved to sometime in August. I think the date's actually set. I don't want to say it here because I might get it wrong, but I think it's been moved to August. Of course, assuming that the legislature gets finished before then. The last two things, very proud of this. Our group, Keolis and MTM, have from day one of the pandemic been very serious and active about trying to address not only the safety of our employees, our vendors' employees, but also the general public, and have been following the guidance and direction of the governor, the CDC, and also the local governments. As of Wednesday, or actually on Wednesday, I think of next week, we will have added to all of our buses mask dispensers. And fortunately, we've received a robust supply of masks from the Federal Transit Administration, Region 9. So we are having available not only at our transit stations, but also on the buses, masks for those customers who don't have a mask. I know in my personal experience when I went to 4th Street Station with Mark Maloney, we saw pretty much every customer had a mask. I think that's probably not surprising because in order to go anywhere today, you pretty much have to have a mask. So we found that mask compliance is on the 13th, 7th through the 13th, we experienced about 100% compliance from transit riders. Which is a very important thing to say because if you're following a lot of the social media and just media in general, periodically what comes up is the safety of being on transit, and we want to make sure the public understands it is safe to ride the buses. As we've talked about before, our ridership is down, not surprisingly from people being in lockdown, but also I think there's just a general fear about any kinds of social activity where you're near other people. But we're very proud of what we've been able to do with our two vendors and with the help of FTA. And I just wanted to share with you that, but also to thank specifically Mark Schlater from our facilities management group that very quickly got the dispensers installed on the buses, and actually I think ended up fabricating some to get it done even quicker. So I personally thought it was going to take us quite a while to do it, but it happened very quickly. And I think that is perhaps the most important thing we can do to get to compliance, is making sure people have a lot of resources available to be compliant. Lastly, we are nearing completion of the Virginia Street project. The installation of the two new roundabouts are in process, the one in Midtown and the one up by the university. We are promoting a safety video, which is entitled How to Safely Drive Through a Roundabout, because even though we've seen more and more of those over the years in our community, they still are an anomaly, I would say, for drivers. So we're doing our best when we're putting these new roundabouts in places where people aren't familiar with them to make sure that the public is educated on how best to use the roundabouts. The video will be distributed through our weekly Virginia Street Project stakeholder update, social media, and rtcwashoe.com. So that concludes my presentation, and I did again want to apologize for everybody for the technical difficulties today.
Thank you very much, Bill. We appreciate that. And no need to apologize. This is crazy times we're living in. We're all trying to make our way through it. So I appreciate all your efforts and Denise's, and we made it through. Not the end of the world. I did want to take a second and thank Bill and Abul and Mark. I think you said his name is Schlater, for the work on this with regards to the masks. That is a big deal, and you did it quickly. And I want to send special thanks out to our customers. They have been fantastic, and we appreciate their willingness to keep themselves and others safe, and all of our bus drivers as well. 100% compliance is incredible, and I'm just incredibly thankful for the responsible nature of our customers and our bus drivers in this effort. I'm very appreciative of that. So thank you to everybody involved. And by next Wednesday, an automatic dispenser, that's incredible. That's great. Appreciate everybody's work on that. Do any other commissioners have any questions or comments on the director's report? Okay, seeing none. Madam Clerk, I don't believe we have any public comment on that item.
No, we do not.
Thank you very much. Okay, that is not an action item. Do we have a federal report?
Madam Vice Chair, in your packet is the written report. I just want to touch on a couple things for the benefit of the board as well as the public. The House approved the Invest in America Act, which would have funded not only a lot of other things, but particularly the transportation side of the needs that would affect us directly. That, as I understand it from recent conversation, is not necessarily going to be taken up as it was approved in the Senate side. And so the Senate is working on their own version or their response to funding needs. The latest information that I got was that it's looking more and more like, giving the time frame and the nature of it being an election year, that some sort of short-term appropriation is likely to happen, as opposed to a omnibus or a large bill that addresses everything. We've been very successful with our federal team in making sure our issues have been addressed. And I just wanted to share with you the one that came out of the Invest Act that was concerning to us, which we've been working on and have gotten very good support so far from our team as well as the Senate side of Congress, relates to mobility on demand. There were some provisions in the laws that was passed out of the House that would have been punitive for mobility on demand systems such as our FlexRIDE, and also we're de-incentivizing using third parties to provide transit. Those were major concerns for us, as probably as a parent, and we have been doing everything we can to make sure, and I think it's pretty much the same position APT is taking, which is we shouldn't be penalized for being creative nor for finding ways to provide transit that allow us to serve people more efficiently and more effectively. That is, in a nutshell, what I can share with you, other than what is provided in detail in the packets that were presented to you. And glad to answer any questions to the extent I can about anything that I know of that's going on at the federal level related to transportation.
Thank you very much. Any commissioners have any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment on that item?
No, we don't.
Very good. Moving on. Item 6, any legal issues?
Not for the board today, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on. Item 7, any closing public comment, Madam Clerk?
There was no additional comment received.
Thank you very much. Do we have any member items? Okay. All right. I'm not seeing any. The only one I had is to get an update on NDEP changes that might affect us at a future meeting. Okay. Seeing no other items. Anybody have any closing comments? All right. Everybody stay safe. Stay well. Mask up. May I get a motion to adjourn?
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, everybody. Well done, Neoma.
Thank you. Do we need a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion? Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. You're the only two. We're the only two left. We lost our quorum.
We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Take care.